As you also heard, Elon address this directly yesterday in the alleged conflict of interest. And he said everything he's doing is very public. And if you all perceive a conflict of interest, you're welcome to bring that up. And as the president said, if he feels like Elon is engaging in something that's a conflict of interest, he will tell Elon not to do that. And Elon also said yesterday that before he moves forward with anything, he consults with the president of the United States. So we're very confident with the ethics and the guardrails that have been put in place here.
Obviously, a preposterous answer given. I mean, first of all, there's barely an agency that Elon Musk could touch that he wouldn't have a conflict of interest. But if you go down the line of the agencies that he has gone after most vociferously, you can see in almost every case, oh, they were investigating him. Oh, they were investigating him over here. Oh, he ran afoul of them over there, and had, previously had issues with almost all of these agencies. The CFPB is like the most brazen one because X has just signed this deal with Visa. He wants it to be the everything app. He wants to get into payment processing. They were said to be regulated by the CFPB. No longer, that is all done. Just to get into the specifics too of the question there, because some of the details of why she asked that particular question is important. Special government employees are subject to, it's actually a criminal statute, to avoid conflicts of interest. So it says they can't participate personally and substantially in any government matter that could affect their financial interests. And again, this is not civil, this is actually criminal. Violating the law is a felony. It could result in fines. It could result even in imprisonment. Now, not that we think any of that is going to happen with DOJ and Trump could pardon him, blah, blah, blah. But that's why she's asking specifically about, hey, did you give him a waiver because to avoid, it coming into conflict with this criminal statute as a special government employee? And she says, well, I don't know. Waivers can be granted for special government employees in certain instances, but even those can be challenged in court and deemed unlawful if you're just like, if it's not done in good faith, if they don't comply with legal standards, or if they violate ethical guidelines. So that's why she asked that specific question about whether or not Elon had been subject to any kind of a waiver.
Yeah, it was a smart question actually there on the way. But I mean, look, can we return? He said he would comply. I think that's important. That's one of the, I'm not saying necessarily that, what did you say? That there's different types of non-compliance in terms of, hey, it's taking a while for us to negotiate all of this. But as of now, the liberal fanfic about just openly saying that I'm going to defy is like not materializing and not happening. I do think that the Elon thing is objectively crazy. There's no way that you can just certify that somebody has, it's like, I grant you conflict of interest, like with the magic wand.
Right.
Can you imagine? I also do think this is worth explaining to people. Special government employees, actually all government employees who work for the president, are subject to rigid conflict of interest laws, excluding elected officials, the vice president and the president, and members of Congress. And those are so stringent that it is often heard of here in Washington that when people go to work for the office of the president, they have to offload their entire stock portfolio. Famously in 2009, not that I feel bad for these people, but I'm just telling you, many of the people who went to go work for Obama had to sell at the bottom just to be able to go and work for the White House. So it's an immense,
the way it should be.
I agree with you 100%. I think it is outrageous, however, because I just always want to highlight this, that the members of Congress themselves have specifically exempted themselves from these same government interest laws. These laws should be on the books for everybody. So it makes no sense that the employees who are making $45,000 a year as staff assistants have more rigid conflict of interest compliance, and they will get, as you said, they will be criminally prosecuted. There is an entire office in the government that reviews. You're not even allowed to buy stocks, including in ETFs and index funds, without reporting them when they're a Schedule C political appointee. Yet, whenever you're, member of Congress or whatever, you don't. Now, this is where the Elon thing is important. It applies not only to public holdings, but to private holdings especially. So for example, SpaceX is an entirely private company. Now, their private company also is reliant on government contracts. So this is where there is a lack of transparency because at least with Tesla is a Fortune 500 publicly traded company. We have tons of insight into their financials, to Elon's. I mean, you can literally go up and look his own, stock ownership, the number of shares, et cetera. There's all of these SEC compliance and things that you have to do whenever you're publicly traded. But in your private stakes, so things like the Boring Company, SpaceX, et cetera, you don't have the same reporting requirements. There's literally no obligation to ever release your financials, like any business that's private. That is where I think that the most objectionable conflict of interest stuff can come, and it's just the most glaring hole for Elon in the future. Like, it's one of those where if you don't have this stuff buttoned up right now, you're going to be spending the next decade in federal court. Like, let's all just look at this clearly. I mean, what, you think some Democratic AG is not going to let this go?
Trump's gonna pardon it.
Yeah, I guess he could. You're right.
So I don't think.
But it would require a literal pardon, just like the same type of pardon that Hunter got, which is like, I pardon you for all crimes in the past and in the future. Which, okay, I mean, I guess we've normalized it now.
I think that's
President Biden.
I don't think there's any reason to expect that Elon would be left in any sort of legal jeopardy here. And just to drill down on what you're saying here, for anyone who believes this is some, noble mission to root out corruption in government, I want you to understand the trajectory of the Trump administration here. In the very first week, what was one of the first illegal acts that he took? Late at night, he fired almost every inspector general across agencies, including ones that he had himself put into that position in his first administration. So they were all fired. These are the people that are meant to be the watchdogs at the agencies to provide some public accountability. And we've relied on the reports that these IGs have put out, both with regard to Biden and with regard to Trump. So they're gone. So you no longer have people in position to watch over what's going on. So almost like a blackout there. You had him fire the top government ethics official that is supposed to be reviewing conflicts of interest and other things of that nature with regard to the White House. He actually signed an executive order rolling back a Biden anti-corruption executive order that also was meant to apply to the White House. And then just for fun, because this is something that's near and dear to Trump's own heart in terms of being the global real estate magnate, he also has rolled back enforcement of foreign bribery laws. So now you can, as a business person overseas trying to make a deal, bribe whatever officials you want to be able to secure that for yourself. So there's been a systematic effort to avoid. Oh, and one more thing. Elon also has said he's not going to make his personal financial disclosure public. So Elon is supposed to be enforcing for himself whether there's any conflicts of interest here. And, it's like I said before, if you look at all of the different agencies that he had run afoul of, transportation, interior, justice, agriculture, the National Labor Relations Board, many lawsuits there, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the SEC, the Defense Department, the FEC, that's the Federal Election Commission, the Office of Government Ethics. Oh, that's the one I just mentioned where they just fired the top person. So it's insane to imagine that the richest man on the planet, who has some $15 billion in federal government contracts over the past number of years, is going to avoid these conflicts and avoid self-dealing. We already know that is the polar opposite of the case. And I think it's always really important to keep in mind what the goal is here. The goal is a very ideological, like radical libertarian vision of stripping the government down so that even if you don't go through Congress and roll back regulations, that would be enforced by the CFPB, that would be enforced by the SEC, they are so short-staffed and they are run by people that are ideologically opposed to those regulations. So it's effectively deregulation by defunding and by, firing all of these employees that you possibly can. Obviously this benefits someone who has a lot of business interests and wants to just be able to do whatever it is that he wants to do. So that's, a big part. That is the primary thing that is going on here. And at the same time, that education contracts are being frozen, and you had the health research freeze that's been rolled back temporarily, at least by a judge. We'll see if they're complying with that. But while you have all these programs that are frozen and contracts that are being frozen and rolled back, Elon himself, his contracts are going right through. This was a great scoop by Ryan and Jeremy over at Dropsite News. So Tesla is set to win the largest State Department contract of 2025. They're getting from the State Department $400 million for armored Teslas. This is apparently armored Cybertrucks in particular. So $400 million in armored Cybertrucks to the State Department, according to procurement documents that they reviewed. So again, the largest contract for the State Department